Change isn't easy for anyone. It's a risk. When something works, even if it doesn't work perfectly, the simplest approach is to stay the course, to avoid rocking the boat. However, for an artist, change is often necessary, but again, doing so can be a frightening prospect for both the artist and for their audience. Marlon Rabenreither has fronted the group Gold Star for over a decade now. While his previous approach was somewhat more folk and acoustic guitar oriented, the pandemic nudged Marlon to try something new. Distorted vocals, aggressive guitars, spacey synths, and propulsive drumming. Produced mostly on computers with his bandmates, Rabenreither created 2 EPs, which are now available as a full-length album. Headlights USA Parts 1 and 2. As an artist, Rabenreither knows that in order to grow and create, one must evolve. We also discuss his creation of the album's cover art. Producing the album during the thick of the pandemic, the retro influences on his modern sound, and where his life's headlights will lead him next. Well, let's start with, why don't you tell everyone just a little bit about yourself and this project? Of course, it is called Gold Star, and this is the new record. And tell us a little bit about your journey, which, what led you to where we are today?
So my name's Marlon. I grew up in Los Angeles, and actually been doing this for probably almost 10 years as like Gold Star. And I guess we really started, I was in a band back in the day, like kind of a garage rock band. And Lucinda Williams came out to one of the shows, and she was like, hey, we're looking for like an acoustic opener and for like a date. And it was like in San Diego or something, Santa Barbara, something like that. And so then all of a sudden I was like, oh, well, I have to start a new project, right? Like a solo project for this opportunity.
That's like a dream. That's like a dream thing, right? Like, I was just doing a gig, and then all of a sudden Lucinda Williams came up, and
no, it's like ridiculous. But I mean, I guess that's Hollywood for you in a way. But but yeah, so that was like the first Gold Star show, and kind of quickly put a set together and a band name and whatnot, and just kind of been doing it for basically 10 years now.
Cool. And the name, as you mentioned, the name is Gold Star, which I've read doing my homework about you, is a little bit based on the Gold Star recording studio in Los Angeles that was notably connected with the Beach Boys and Phil Spector and stuff. And the new album's called Headlights USA 1 and 2. And I have to tell you, I didn't even realize, I've had this record sitting around for a month or so, and I didn't realize until like yesterday, the skull. I didn't see it. You know those weird things that you're a little younger than me, but there used to be those weird pictures in the mall, and you'd have to pick out the picture within the picture. I don't know if you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, they're like, yes, I know what you're talking about.
You can Google it, all things 90s, but this is, I never saw those things, and I didn't see this either until I saw it like online, and I went, wait a minute, does mine have a skull on it too? And there it is. So tell us about this album cover. Who did this? It's very cool.
Actually, I did it myself, but I've tended to like have done most of the artwork like for the albums and stuff. Not necessarily because like I really want to, but often it's just a lot easier budget wise.
Right, sure.
But also I did go to art school, and so like I'm pretty proficient with all that kind of stuff.
So how did you actually do this? What was this? It was something that you did. Was it digital or was it physical?
Yeah.
And you scanned it, or what was it?
Basically, and how the effect works is it's 2 different size stars. There's really only 2 different sizes, and so because they're slightly different, the gap in between the stars reads as like negative space, right? So if you want it to be white, you use the bigger stars. If you want it to be black, you use a grouping of the smaller stars.
I see. So you didn't do it by hand? Did you do it by hand?
No, in Photoshop, but basically kind of, you make like a grid, and then you drop one in each one. So there's like probably whatever, I don't know, 1,500 stars on there, whatever it is. Then you just pop them in, and you can copy and paste like groups of them, right?
Okay.
But yeah, you kind of
cool.
But it took a long time to figure out. Like it was definitely nerve-wracking, but I'm glad you see it.
I finally see it. So back to the back to the band name that you said has been around about a decade. as I said, the recording studio, people who love music and love American rock and roll have probably heard about Gold Star Recording Studios. But do you want to give us a little info about how you sort of ended up picking that name for your band and how that relates to the studio?
Well, yeah. So, like, I guess the studio has been gone for my entire lifetime, basically. But it was a very legendary recording studio. But for me,
It's
I
a
thought,
strip mall, as I believe. It's a strip mall right now.
yeah. So it's right where like my mom lives. That's where I grew up. Basically, is East Hollywood. It's like a block away, and it's just a horrible strip mall now, right? But like, you hear these stories, and I'm like, oh wow, that's pretty amazing. And so it's not like it's definitely an homage to the studio, but it's not like a direct thing either. It's kind of like it's also kind of, to me the name's kind of reminiscent of like Big Star and
Right.
Gold Star. Also just means like loads of different things. Like there's a BSA, like a motorcycle. There's a I think like the number one beer in Israel is called Gold Star. There's like loads of things, right? It's
Right.
kind of a well-known term, I guess.
Right. And Phil Spector loved that recording studio, and your album really has a wall of sound kind of feel to it. How did you approach the production of this piece? What were the interesting thing here is in a lot of your press, I keep seeing you referred to as a folk artist, and then I'm listening to this album, and it's like a rock and roll record to me, and I'm going, what is the folky thing? But on more than one occasion while I'm listening, it occurs to me that you can really hear that song structure as a vocal acoustic behind the band that you put forth. And as I said, you do have that synthy wall of sound happening, but you can really pick out that, oh, I can see how he wrote this. It sounds like a guitar vocal in the background there somewhere, or if I extracted all this other stuff. So how did you kind of formulate the sound for this project, given how you write, or maybe how previous projects have gone for you?
So yeah, I think it's funny that you say that, but if you listen to the older records, it's very much like acoustic guitar, harmonica, that whole kind of thing, like the folky kind of I don't know, production and whatnot. And this record definitely wanted to break away from that and incorporate a lot of like synths and drum machines, loops and samples, all kinds of stuff that like I'd never really messed with before, to try to make like kind of a rock and roll record, really. And but I think you're also right in like kind of identifying that the core of it is still very much like kind of more traditional folk, classic rock kind of stuff.
Right. In a way, and not to compare you, but in a way, it reminds me of Beck. You know how he used to have those early folk albums, and then
Absolutely.
he sort of started to put it together with loops and different things, and it sort of became something much different. What are some influences that you have that that you really love, that have been very influential to you in your music over your lifetime?
There's so many. Like I think if you're talking like big picture, not just for this record, then it's definitely like Leonard Cohen and Dylan, stuff like that, right? Towns Van Zandt, definitely.
Big guns.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's like that's kind of what I gravitate towards, I guess. But I really dig just so much music. Because right now there's just so much great music out there as well.
Yeah, there is. You just have to find it. But I always tell people, hey, there's no good music nowadays. I say that's not true. You have to
Yeah,
get out
you
there
have to
and start
work a
looking
lot
for it.
to find it. I think it's funny, but there really is an amazing amount of music out there, and it's just there's almost so much content that it's harder to find like the really good stuff, but it's definitely there.
Right. So take us through the production of this album. Was it you, or how did you sort of think about how you wanted this thing to sound, and how did you put it together in the studio?
So this was definitely like a self-produced kind of project. This was done not so much in a studio, but very much just like on a laptop in like a room, like
Wow.
this one.
That one.
Uh, and so it's me and my buddy Jordan who played guitar and bass on a lot of the record, and we kind of just did it together, just like in living rooms and bedrooms, and then we with the drum machines and the synths and like kind of the core of it, and then took it to studios to do like the drums and whatnot. But yeah, this was like very much like self created, whereas in the past I've kind of worked more with producers in bigger studios, and you know what I mean, like done it with a bunch of people in a room playing together. This was just built up on a laptop, like in a bedroom.
It's funny because it doesn't have that feel at all. It feels really, like I said, it has that wall of sound. It's a big old, I mean, I know you can use plugins for your reverb and everything nowadays, but you certainly made that disguise. It doesn't sound like it was that blue couch over there. Sounds
Right. Yeah. I mean, but yeah, really it is. It's like a lot of like not a lot of amps, a lot of direct input, like a lot of emulators and just in the box stuff, you know. But it is pretty amazing what kind of technology can do these days, honestly.
Yeah, definitely. Part of the sound on this record is nostalgic, but really it feels super modern. I think you hit an interesting mark on the sound of this thing. It has traditional stuff going on, but at the same time, it's also like, whoa, this is I feel like it's that rare moment where it's something that I hadn't quite heard before. You have a really unique sound. You're paying homage to the traditional form of songwriting, but at the same time, the production really gets you gets you paying attention to that something new is happening here.
I mean, that means a lot to me for you to say that. That was definitely a really big goal for this project, for this album in particular, was to kind of bridge this. How do you make kind of traditional music, especially folk music, that kind of stuff? Like my background, like how do you make that relevant today, right? And so this was kind of trying to make something that is, instead of looking so back in time, is also kind of looking forward a bit and kind of meeting these two pieces, kind of meeting, I guess.
My copy here is on vinyl. I've got a nice black vinyl copy. Thanks for the nice plastic insert there. That was very thoughtful. That's cool. I don't know why everybody doesn't do this. They have you put the semicircle not polyethylene or whatever it is, but it goes into the paper sleeve, and that's for us wacky record collectors. It's super appreciated because then I don't have to use a special aftermarket sleeve or anything, and that was just so. Thank you. Are you a vinyl guy? Are you into records, or do you care?
Yeah,
Or,
definitely. I've been very resistant to get on the Spotify thing, but at this point, I could not. I
yeah.
couldn't fight it any longer. but yeah, still definitely prefer to listen to vinyl.
Yeah, and the record sounds really good. It's a really nice pressing. Were you happy with what you heard when you listened to
Absolutely.
it?
Yeah. I'm glad that hearing you say that, because I don't have enough of like a hi-fi setup to really, like, is this a good pressing? They sent the master. I'm like, well, there's no problems. Like, it sounds good. But I don't know if it's you really need to, I think, a pretty good system to determine those things.
No, it works. And you've got, for folks that haven't heard the record, and you should look it up. You got a lot of crunchy digital crunch on your vocals, of course, but that's the style of that you were going through in the production, and it works. It works to listen to, but it translates. Sometimes that hard digital sound doesn't always translate to the analog record, but it works for me. I listen to both the digital and the analog, and they both sound great. And the record, I think, softens some of those digital edges. So this is one to listen to on vinyl, I think.
Right on.
Yeah.
That makes me happy to hear.
Sounds great. And so tell us about Headlights USA is, of course, the name of a song on here, but the name of the album is Headlights USA Part 1 and 2.
Okay.
We're talking side 1, side 2. It reminds me of those old James Brown 45s. It was like Hot Pants 1 and Hot Pants 2. And you'd have to.
So originally the first 5 songs, like on side A, they were released as an EP. And there was always this kind of like idea that there would be another EP, but this label reached out and they were like, "Hey, we love Headlights. Can we put it out in vinyl?" I was like, "Yeah, but there's only 5 songs, right?
I see.
Do you want to? I have 5 other ones that were from around that same time that we could finish up, right, and put them together and press them on one LP." And they were like, "Yeah, perfect. Let's get to work." And then so then we just, like, basically all we really did is just kind of add drums to the other 5 songs that were from those sessions and send it in, and then whatever, 6 months later they had the vinyl, and here you go.
Cool. So it's sort of it's almost like 2 EPs smushed together to make a record.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right, right. So, so you got this great new album. It just came out, I believe, at the end of September. And how do you? What's your thing? How do you get this out there now? Will you have a band that you can tour with, or how does this work? Since you did it, I'm asking because you did a lot on the computer. So, can
Yeah.
you translate to the stage? How are you going to bring that to sort of a live world?
So for like, for instance, for our record release show, which we had in Los Angeles like a couple weeks ago, was we did it with a 6 piece band, just like an amazing band. A lot of the same crew that like did some of the overdubs on the record. People I've been playing with for a long time, and so you got like pedal steel, keys, drums, bass, guitar, two guitars, I guess, like just the whole thing. So it wasn't so much of a challenge to we did it without like any of the samples and stuff, but it really just kind of like bringing the energy of the songs. It's not too hard because I think the songs are, like in that same way, they're kind of traditionally written, right? So it's not too hard to just pick up some guitars and figure it out.
Right. So, what are you? You're mostly comfortable on guitar, or are you playing the keys on the album a lot too, or how did you sort of put that together?
I would say it's some of the keys, but mostly guitar on this record. And even then, this is probably like the least I've played like instrumentation guitar wise on a record. A lot of that was my collaborator Jordan Odom, and I
Did he do
think
a lot of the synthy type stuff?
also him playing that. I think a lot of I would say most of my contributions for this is just like on the songwriting end, and then also like all the drum kind of loops. A lot of that was just kind of started from that with an acoustic guitar, and then you're like, how do you take it from there?
Right. So it's interesting. What inspired you to kind of, go in this direction, this sound? If I'm being honest, I haven't exhaustively explored your catalog, although I certainly will now. But what made you kind of want to get into the loops and the synths and stuff rather than just, stay acoustic or go the more traditional route? Well, what was sort of the trigger for you to do that?
I honestly it might just be like being pigeonholed and like having something expected of you. I think is frustrating. I think it's something that just happens. I think it probably frustrates a lot of artists, but it's just such and it makes sense too because these descriptors are used to explain somebody's music, right? But it
Right.
sometimes really hurts to hear it's like, oh, you're Americana or whatever. And for whatever reason, that just felt like so out of touch with what was happening, like, and especially like in 2020 or whatever. It's just like this, like, I don't know, this like apocalyptic kind of zone, right? And it just seemed like to do just folk music or whatever, Americana just seemed like outrageously like dated to me. And I was like, just do something totally different and just try to push on that.
Well, it's really cool. And back to the synths and the sounds that you created on the album. Again, the thoughtfulness and the craft that was put into the synth lines, and that coupled with you just built a really great world on this album, and it really works together, and sometimes I'm listening to it and I'm going, oh, that's kind of like a 70s thing, but then there's also this sort of 80s angular synth thing that's working with that. It's really, really cool, Marlon. I really like this record.
Right on. Thank you, brother. That means a lot to me.
You got it. It's not a question. I'm just saying that. So what's next? You're going to play this stuff, and you're a creative, artistic guy, so you must have some thoughts about what's coming up next. Even though you just released this music, but where are we going from here?
Well, yeah. So the interesting thing with like the kind of supply chain issues, especially with like the vinyl plants, like that taking so long to even make vinyl, like there's a record in the bag basically that was done while we were waiting for this kind of for headlights to come out or like to for we had the release, the physical. And so in a way, I feel like there's already like new stuff that we're figuring out right now. But yeah, so I don't know, keep your ears open. We'll have more music coming out soon.
So what was the time frame in which most of this stuff was recorded? During the pandemic? Was it sort of a pandemic thing with
Yeah,
doing it at home?
the first EP was definitely, and then the second one was kind of more of a like a mixture like that was like I would say was finished much more recently, but like kind of was started in that same like during the pandemic like lockdowns.
Right. So it feels to me like it, probably influenced the sound or where you were going. Did you feel that the world around you was strongly influencing what you were coming up with there on your blue couch? I keep mentioning your blue couch.
Yeah, no, like I mean, I remember vividly. We were doing drums at a studio in downtown Los Angeles, and it's like in the jewelry district, and this is when the LA had like a curfew from whatever the hours were. So we finished our session. We're like, oh, we literally can't leave. So we go to the roof and we look down. There's just National Guard just everywhere, and we're like, oh, cool. I don't know what to do. Maybe let's work on another song. And
Let's order Chinese. What do you guys want? Chinese?
but yeah, so no, I think that definitely like it's somehow like seeped into the record. I imagine just because it just seemed like a really crazy time.
Yeah, it definitely has that feel. It works. Again, I think you really you hit a lot of marks here on this thing, and it's really a really cool project. Again, well, Marlon, listen, I don't want to take up any more of your time. I congratulate you on this release, and I wish you the best of luck with it. I hope you stay in touch, and I look forward to hearing what you got cooking next if folks like this record. So do you think it's going to be something in this vein, or are you going to re-explore kind of what you had done, or what do you think? We're doing more rock or something else, or maybe something even different than all those things?
I think I tend to be like kind of like reactionary and like push against whatever the immediate release was. So I think this next one is going to be to some degree a much more like organic sounding. That was kind of the goal, is instead of using drum machines and everything and have it kind of be like uh one or two people kind of like dictating this whole thing, is just put a bunch of people in a room, play, press record, and just do that and do it within a couple of days instead of spread out over a longer period of time as Headlights was. So I think the next thing will be a little more intimate and organic feeling.
Well, I don't want you to lose the magic that's on the blue couch. So don't totally forget about the blue couch.
So, but we won't forget the blue couch for sure.
You had something going right on the blue couch. Marlon, I thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much. Really, really appreciate it.